Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Welcome back to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited to have a return guest, Mark Hardcastle. Mark, welcome back to the FemiNinja, and welcome to the FemiNinja Cave again.
Oh my goodness, Cheryl! Thank you so much for inviting me back. I've just got to tell you, I'm a little bit intimidated here, being in the girl cave.
I understand
the FemiNinja environment here. Just a little bit intimidating. So, we're going to have to see where this goes, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Kind of powerful aura, isn't it?
There's power in this room. Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There sure is.
Well, I know there's a lot of energy, and I think that you kind of contribute to that as well.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I bring what I can.
You're a ninja at heart, and I know that. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you know it, but I
All
do.
right.
And so speaking of ninja, I'm just going to go right into, one of the things that we talk about in my martial art, Ninpo Taijutsu, it's the character of Nin, which means patience and perseverance. So as we go through our journey of training in martial arts, it's also our journey, our life's journey. And we have to really be patient and persevere in the goals that we're trying to achieve, and to be able to take whatever is coming our way and to be able to eventually work through obstacles. And you certainly know a lot about that.
Well, you say you're 63. I'm 60.
Well, thanks a lot. I don't think I ever announced that on the show, but everybody knows now.
I thought you said that just a minute. Was that before the tape was ready?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to start over?
No, it's okay. I am 63.
Okay, and I'm 60. And the point of that is, by virtue of the fact that we have these decades of time on the planet, we've accumulated stories.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of those that involve some obstacles and some determination, some perseverance, just like with you and just like with anybody that gets to be our age. We accumulate those stories. Mm-hmm. So yeah, love to talk about them. Love to share the things that I have learned through that. If they would be helpful to your audience.
I know they would love it. So I want you to start with a story that you call the magic of the fourth stripe. So I just kind of want to let my listeners know that you are an airline captain. Mm-hmm. You're a pilot. You are a graduate of the Air Force Academy. And this is your second visit to the FemiNinja Project. And the last episode that we did together is episode 30, The Symphony of Your Life, which is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
So just take it from there.
Okay, the magic of the fourth stripe. Oh my goodness, there's so many things that I could say about this. I've been a captain for 2.5 years, and when one becomes a captain, one receives a fourth stripe on the uniform. Did you know that, by the way? If you're walking down the terminal at the airport, you see somebody with 4 stripes on their sleeve, that's always a captain. 3 stripes on the sleeve, always a first officer. 2 stripes, always a flight attendant. A little bit of trivia that might get you a cup of coffee from your traveling companion next time you're in the airport. Yeah. Fourth stripe, always a captain. Captains are in charge of the flight, and lots of authority and a lot of responsibility that come with that. The magic part is the authority part, and how I have the ability to influence everything about my flight. And so I've had the opportunity to touch my what I call my rapidly forming short duration team, my gate agents, my flight attendants, my ground handlers, and indeed my passengers on my flights. So the story that you and I talked about before had to do with a flight when I was flying from Houston down to Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago. And one of my pre-flight rituals that I really enjoy engaging in is I actually take the microphone at the podium before boarding and greet my passengers. And I try to put them at ease because the way traveling is these days, people arrive at the airport expecting a bad experience, and in many ways we deliver that. But when the passengers show up at the gate, that's my first opportunity to touch them. So
they haven't even boarded the plane. They're still like waiting to get on and go down the jetway.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I say hello, and I want to put them at ease, and I have some very specific things that I say that are designed to do that. And once that's done, as the boarding process gets underway, if time permits, I actually go out and shake hands with my passengers. I welcome them to the flight. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. What takes you to Port of Spain today? Just a brief little conversation, and thank you, welcome aboard, and I move on to the next passenger to say hi. So I try to influence the experience a little bit there.
Let me ask you this, though. How did the passengers respond? Like, wow.
I generally get a very good response. And so this is one aspect of this idea of the magic of the fourth stripe that I try to encourage my peers to understand what's possible. My passengers receive that very well. I get comments about that frequently. My frequent flyers often will say they've never seen this before after 1 million, 2 million, however many million miles. But one of the real opportunities that we have in this world is to look for the places where the bar is low. Pilots traditionally have not engaged in customer service. We just haven't done that before, and this is an opportunity that we are starting to talk about at my company. The bar is low, and that's a good news, bad news thing. The bad news is that we just never have done it, which means, as I say, the bar is low. How many times have I said that? I'm going to say it one more time here in a second, because the good news is that the bar is low, which means it's very easy to step over. So a little gesture can carry great weight. So the takeaway at this point, and we haven't even gotten to the big punch here, is that we all have opportunities to see in our lives where the bar is low. We can very easily help other people through a particular challenge that they are going through. In my case, it's these passengers who are having to deal with this challenge of air travel. Modern air travel is just hard. And just a little touch here and there can change the whole experience. So, I would encourage your listeners to be watch for these opportunities, these little places where you can just step over the bar because the bar is low. It doesn't take a lot of energy to do that. But back to the story, shook some hands, and then my passengers got on the airplane, and over the course of the flight from Houston to Port of Spain, I sent back my business cards, a little note to some of my passengers. And then we landed at deplaning. My passengers are leaving now, and I'm standing there at the door of the airplane saying goodbye to my folks. Little gentleman comes by, hands me his business card. I'd sent mine back to him with a handwritten note. He reciprocated with a handwritten note on his business card and left the airplane, didn't think anything of it. Had my layover in Port of Spain, flew home a couple of days later, found the business card in my pocket. And I thought, what the heck? Let me just write the guy a little email, thank him for being on my flight. And just a little 2-3 lines. Hey, senor, whatever his name was. Sure enjoyed having you on my airplane. Thanks for flying with me. I hope your onward journey to Caracas went well. I hope to see you again soon. Sincerely, Captain Mark. Didn't think anything of it. Just a couple of hours later, I got a substantial email back from him saying that he had been one of our highest level status passengers for many years, had recently gotten sick, had been unable to fly, so he was no longer eligible for that status, but was now flying again, obviously, and had reconnected with our status representatives to try to get reinstated, and they were not being cooperative. And he was ready to leave our airline, go to another airline over that. And then he said, because of the kindness he had received from the captain, he was willing to stay with our airline after 1.3 million miles of flying and continue to work with our status representatives to try to get back into that program. Now, the thing that, I want to reiterate what I said a minute ago. It wasn't me. It was the captain. It was the magic of the fourth stripe that was able to influence this situation. The part that I played in that was I had put myself in a position where I was able to see an opportunity to use the authority that comes with that position to change this guy's experience just a little bit. And it was significant enough to him that our company was able to retain him as a passenger.
What's so impactful is that you had no idea that that's what you were doing as you were doing it.
Not at all.
It was just, this person could have been, just like he was just like everybody else,
Yeah.
and you treat everybody like they're royalty because each person is very important. And right now my listeners are wondering, how do I get on this guy's airplane?
Well, you know how to do that. When they reach out to you, you
Yes.
have my permission to tell them how to do that.
Okay.
I'm trying to be judicious here. I'm not representing
I
the
understand,
airline,
right.
and so it's just me here telling stories today. But again, it's the magic of the fourth stripe. We all have that authority in our position in life with people around us that we can change their life experience. Just a little gestures.
I think a lot of people think that they're not that important or they don't have that type of influence over other people. And it could be as simple as being in the grocery store and just helping somebody, an elderly person reach up high on the shelf to get something down, or it could be the
Beautiful.
clerk. I mean, any simple thing like that.
Beautiful.
Or, just let me carry your groceries for you. Let me give you a hand. I mean, it's just so small.
So
but
I saw someone at the grocery store. I love the fact that you brought that up. So an elderly lady had struggled getting her cart of groceries out to her car. I watched this unfold. The lady got her groceries out, put them in the car, and now she's got this empty cart here. Got to, go make her way back. Well, another customer was walking by there and said, "Hey, let me just take that cart back in for you." She needed a cart anyway, right? So she just, rather than grabbing one out of the stack, she now had her cart, could go right in and shop, and it saved this dear old lady the effort, and it would have been an effort for her to take the cart back in, or even in one of the corrals, in the parking lot. So you're right. It's all around if we just open our eyes.
And you could actually see that happening and you saw it unfold.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people might be struggling or suffering and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
Just like the gentleman that you were dealing with, on the airplane, and that
idea.
little, act of kindness made such a huge impact for him.
Yeah. Plato told us over 2,000 years ago to be kind. For everyone we meet is fighting a hard battle. We have no idea what's going on around us. So if I'm if my story has value, it's simply because I've recognized the value, the authority that comes with being with the fourth stripe, and we're all captains of our lives in some form. We all have a fourth stripe. Just embrace the magic that comes with that, and it can change someone's life in a small way today, maybe a bigger way than we have any idea.
I think this is a perfect segue into the next thing we wanted to talk about, which is the imposter syndrome. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm waiting for you to transition here. You say this is a perfect transition. How do we go from the authority, the magic of the fourth stripe, into imposter syndrome?
Well, it was just talking about how we impact other people and how we don't even realize how we can impact other people.
We live our lives every day with whatever the day has in store for us. In one area of my life, and I'm an airline captain. In another area of my life, I teach children to sing at the Colorado Children's Chorale. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a husband, I'm a father. These are all very legitimate areas of my life. And again, being 60, I'm different at all of them than I was when I was 25. So each one of these roles is a legitimate role. And we all have various roles in our lives. At the beginning, we are not how we're going to be at the end. Can I tell the story about the comedian I told you off camera?
Absolutely.
This is the best illustration of this that I've ever heard. A fellow by the name of Darren LaCroix, who many years ago was world champion of public speaking at Toastmasters. He got his start as a public speaker as a comedian. Now, when he was brand new, the people around him who knew him said, "Dude, what do you mean, comedian? You're not a comedian. You're not even funny. Why do you call yourself a comedian?" Well, what they were doing is they were comparing him to Jerry Seinfeld, for example. Now, Darren was just starting out. It was an unfair comparison to compare him to Jerry Seinfeld, who was at the top of his game at the time. Did it mean that Darren was not a comedian? Not at all. It just meant that he was not a particularly skillful one. He was a beginner, but he was a comedian. So he was acting as if he were a comedian. He was getting gigs, going out and standing on stage. He was doing all the things that comedians do, but he felt like he was an imposter because he wasn't Jerry Seinfeld. And people all around him were telling him, "You're not funny. You're not a comedian." Well, of course he was a comedian. He was not an imposter. He was being his authentic self in that arena, that part of his day. I mean, another part of his day, I think he said he sold TVs at an electronics store. Oh no, I don't. He actually had a Subway restaurant. He ran this Subway, and so during the day he would sell sandwiches, and at night he would get on stage as a comedian. In one area of his life, he was an authentic sandwich maker, and in another area of his life, he was an authentic comedian. And 20 years later, he's much better at both of them than he was at the beginning. But we have this psychological challenge where when we compare ourselves in one particular area of our lives to people who are much more advanced or much more famous or better at it, but they've been doing it for many years, we feel like imposters. We don't need to burden ourselves with that. We can embrace that role that we are living today because today requires that particular role, and feel good about being authentic and giving it our best effort in that area of our lives without feeling like an imposter, because it really is who we are. It's just a different part of who we are. Our whole authentic self has all these different hats that we wear. And because we're doing one role today, doesn't mean we're being disloyal to a different role that would be more appropriate at a different time.
So let me ask you this, because you say you've been a captain now 2.5 years. And I do remember when you got your captain stripe, because I remember seeing that on Facebook. So when you got that stripe initially, did you feel like a little bit of an imposter at first, or did you just take on that role very easily or effortlessly?
Yes to both, actually. By the time I put on the fourth stripe, I had been a co-pilot for 25 years. And co-pilots sit in the right seat, captains sit in the left seat. So I sat over in the right seat for 25 years watching that guy sitting next to me in the left seat through all manner of circumstances and challenges and how they responded and how they operated as a captain. So I felt pretty good about knowing in my head what it would mean to be a captain. But I really had no idea on a gut level what it would feel like to be a captain. And that has gradually grown on me. But another reality of that is that once one becomes a captain, then one is the captain. One must be the captain. And so I stepped into that role with enthusiasm, to the best of my ability, and I'm pretty sure I'm better at it today than I was 2.5 years ago. But interesting how I kind of got thrown into the briar patch. My very first flight as a captain, I had just been checked out by the instructors. I'm the guy. Showed up to work 8 o'clock in the morning, and one of the staff reps came over and said, "Hey, Mark, you know you're delayed 3 hours?" No, I didn't know that. What's going on? So, well, you're going to Newark, and there's New York airspace is shut down for 3 hours for a VIP arrival. Okay, I don't know what that means, but what that means is I'm 3 hours delayed. So, like any good captain would do at that point, I turned to my co-pilot and said, "I'm going to go take a nap." So I did that, and 3 hours later, we went down to the gate, and I walked right into a hornet's nest. Because apparently my passengers had not been kept informed about why they were delayed for 3 hours. Yeah. So as I walked into this, I'm hearing all my passengers speculating about, weather in Newark or, whatever that was just not part of the picture. And one of the passengers was literally pounding on the podium with her fist, yelling, "How is the airline going to compensate me? How is the airline going to compensate me? How is the airline going to compensate me?" Another lady was in tears. She's worried about trying to get to a funeral. So really stressed passengers and just a really negative buzz in the gate area there, the boarding area. And I'm looking around for the captain. Okay, how's he going to fix this? And my arm waved in front of my face, and there's the fourth stripe. And I thought, okay, I don't know what to do here, but I got to do something.
It's game time.
It's game time. And in the back of my mind, I remembered that I'd been trained over the years that, just say something to the passengers. Just say something to the passengers. And I thought, okay, here we go. And I picked up the microphone and explained what was going on. And in 30 seconds, we got the airspace problem. This is the FAA. The weather is fine. Our airplane is here. In fact, you look right over there. You can see my flight attendants. They're going down the jet bridge right now to do their safety checks. As soon as they finish, we'll start boarding, and we'll be out of here in half an hour. And put the microphone down. And everything just kind of simmered right down. Everybody settled down. And the lady who had been pounding on the podium was all of a sudden, she was all smiles. And the lady who was trying to get to a funeral, one of the other gate agents had already gotten her rebooked. She's on the way through another city. She's going to make the funeral. Everything's going to be fine. It was just a matter of the guy with the fourth stripe needed to say something. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't particularly eloquent. I didn't know what to say. They just wanted to hear from the guy in charge. I went to school on that. Mm-hmm. And I've gradually over time sort of built that out into almost a persona. Mm-hmm. The short version is that if I can help fix a situation like that after it has occurred, wouldn't it be cool if I could somehow get ahead of that and maybe get the passengers on my side before anything goes wrong?
Right.
So that when something inevitably goes wrong, as it so frequently does in this modern airspace system, mm-hmm. they roll with it.
Well, it's almost like you're a team. If something
right.
goes wrong, it impacts every single one of you.
Absolutely.
And I think about that a lot of times when things aren't going well for me when I'm flying, which happens a lot.
It's the nature of the system.
Yeah. I'm not the only one who's in this boat, so to speak.
Right.
It's not just me and the passengers. The crew's under a lot of pressure too.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity there. When we know we are walking into a situation where everyone around us is challenged, wouldn't it be cool if you or I or someone could just touch everybody in a small way to let them know that we see. And it doesn't have to be the captain. It can be anybody in the gate area, the proverbial gate area, if you will. Not a big deal. We've all been through the TSA strip search. We've all suffered that indignity. We've all been on in the cattle car and the train out at the Denver airport, and we've all been there. But it's okay. It's all right. It's just what happens. Weather happens. Maintenance happens. And this is all proverbial. It happens all around us all the time. We have the ability as human beings to have a human connection in stressful times and influence how people experience those times. So I have a beautiful, ripe opportunity every time I go fly to do that because I know I'm walking into a stressful situation. It's what I do. And it's not stressful for me, but it's stressful for everybody everybody around me, my flight attendants, my gate agents, my passengers, my tug driver, my baggage handler. Mm-hmm. So if there's a difference between me and some of the other guys that do this, and I don't know that there is, and again, it's just simply me recognizing the fourth stripe and the privilege I have of being in a place where because of the fourth stripe, I can step over the bar that is so low and change the experience. Mm-hmm. So my message for those who are listening would be, again, you're the captain of your life. And if you'll open your eyes to what's going on around you and just recognize the stress that everyone is in as everyone is fighting their own hard battle, mm-hmm. what can you say that can maybe diffuse a situation? What kind gesture can you give that will ease someone's burden just a little bit around you?
Even a smile.
I'll bet you know this. Just try this. Walking down the street, walking into the grocery store, just look at somebody in the eye and smile and see what happens. I will bet you that you will get a smile in return. And at that point, you have changed the way the person sees the world.
It's the human connection.
Yeah.
And that's what I have a huge pet peeve about people, well, for many reasons, staring at their phone as they're walking around. Number one, it's really unsafe because predators are everywhere. So I can never say that enough times. It's kind of you, though, with the low bar.
Yeah.
Looking people in the eye, you're present.
Yeah.
And you're really paying attention to what's going on, not only in your environment, but when you look somebody in the eye and you smile at them and say hello, you might be shocked at how many people smile back.
People have this need to be seen, and their phone doesn't see them.
No.
But if you, on the other hand, can look them in the eye, smile at them, they feel seen. And just that instantaneous, that one little gesture, it's fun to see the response.
I had a lot of people when I was teaching self-defense classes for women and girls, and I worked with a lot of women just one-on-one. And a lot of the complaints they would have is that they're not seen anymore, or like that people don't see them. And a lot of them were older people, probably like in their 60s.
Yeah, like us.
Like us, that people just don't see them anymore. And I would teach them how to, and practice this at the grocery store, how to walk with a cart in a way that you're not leaning over and pushing the cart, that the cart is kind of like an extension of yourself. So it's almost like, I call it the ninja walk, and it's very sneaky. And then your chest is up, but your knees are soft, and looking people in the eye, and something just so phenomenal happens. It's almost like the parting of the Red Seas as you're going through a crowded aisle, is that people just get out of your way, not because they're threatened, but they see you. And one of my clients didn't believe me. She's so petite. She looks like a teenager herself, or like a little kid.
Yeah.
And she didn't believe me, so she went to the grocery store and she goes, it was magical. She said, not only did people look at me, they smiled and stuff. And she says, I thought I was making it up. I thought I was imagining it. So she went back to her typical way of pushing the cart and going through the store. And she says, all of a sudden, I disappeared. I was invisible again. And people just crowded around. I couldn't get through the aisles. And then I went back to the other way. So it's amazing. It's about being present.
Yeah, engaging. Engage with life. And then she had something to give.
Right.
Because as she's going down the aisle, she is seen. Now they're looking at her. She can then smile at them, and it becomes a reciprocal virtuous cycle.
Yeah, she was giving and then she was receiving.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got this positive cycle going on, and it just kind of carries throughout the store.
Yeah. So there it is again for the listeners. Here's a challenge. Do that. Do that in the grocery store. See what happens.
I think I kind of embarrassed myself in the grocery store a few weeks ago, but hey, I've been there, done that, and it's going to happen again. But it was funny. There was I was telling you about the networking group that I was at, and had met this wonderful woman, Michelle Mraz.
Yeah.
And
love Michelle.
I love her. Oh my gosh. And anyway, one of the networking, members didn't make it to the meeting, and she was so disappointed that she couldn't make it because something had come up. Well, I'm pulling into the King Soopers parking lot, and I had to park in a place I never parked before. I have my habits, I'll admit it. So I was like, oh, someone took my parking places, So I had to turn around and park in a place that I never parked before. And as I pulled in, and there was a car in front of me, so we were kind of nose to nose, and looked up, and it was Julie. It was the woman who hadn't been at the meeting.
Okay.
So we're like talking in the parking lot, and I'm like, Julie, I'm freezing to death. We need to go inside. So we walk into King Soopers, and we're standing there, and we're still going on, and we're just having a wonderful conversation. And everybody that walked by us looked at us, and they just got a huge smile on their face because we were having so much fun. We were so animated. We were laughing and just loving on each other.
Yeah.
And before you could see it, and I said, are you noticing this? And she said, oh yeah, I see it. And she said, so our goal was, as we went through the store and we finally parted and went our separate ways, was to smile all the way through the store.
Yeah.
So it was really an incredible experience because it was amazing.
The magic of the fourth stripe.
Yeah.
Being the captain of your life, choosing how you want to interact with your world.
So, Mark, is that going to be the title of your next book? Are you
Magic
working?
of the fourth stripe. I am. I'm well into my next book.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm thinking a title along those lines. My blog is The Captain's Log. And so I'm thinking the book will be something along the lines of the captain's log, the magic of the fourth stripe. Something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So let's talk about your blog, because you do have a blog that, and you talked about, this is how I got the imposter syndrome, is because we were talking about it before we started recording.
Yeah.
And you actually wrote an article in what, 4 pieces, and put it on.
Oh, yeah.
Why are you laughing at me?
Well, yeah, that was. I thought you were going to another article, but that was.
Oh no, we can go there.
The one you're talking about, the 4 pieces, was my authenticity piece. Seems as though recently, and I don't know, I don't think this is really where you were trying to go. I will just make this observation. I keep hearing about people are so worried these days about being authentic. And we talked about that a few minutes ago, the different hats that we all wear. But I found myself inspired to write about that, and about the imposter syndrome and authenticity and those kinds of things.
See, I knew we'd get there.
Yeah. That's what you're talking about.
Oh,
So,
okay.
well, we already talked about imposter syndrome. So was there something else you wanted to talk about that?
Well, no, the authenticity and the magic of the fourth stripe, because what we were talking about before is how when you do put on your jacket, your captain's jacket, your coat, and you change.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that because when I put on my gi and I start tying that belt around my waist, I don't want to say I'm a different person, but it's a different part of me that comes forth in a way of self-expression. I mean, the fact that I could take down somebody twice my size and half my age and then go get my nails done is really empowering.
That does evoke an image.
Doesn't it? Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's just all the different hats that we do wear in our lives, all the different coats that we do have to put on. And it's not like if I put that gi on, it's not like I'm ignoring the other part of me as a wife, as, a writer, as, a ballet dancer who still goes to ballet class. It's just a different part of my personality and a different part of what puts me together and makes me whole.
Yeah.
And I told you, before we started recording, that I had stopped my martial arts training for about 3 years. And I recently went back. It was about 4 weeks ago. When I walked in there, it was like I was coming home. And it was a part of me that had been missing for 3 years, pardon me, that I knew something was missing, but I wasn't ready to step back into that role and do it because I had other things that were preoccupying me. And we were talking about having all of those different things that make you a whole person actually keeps you healthy and vibrant.
Again, with the amount of time that we've had on the planet, we've recognized the parts of us that bring us joy and bring us fulfillment, and we cultivate those and express them. And when we don't, I think you were the one that mentioned that there's a little part inside of you that dies, and the problem is that little black area inside can grow if we choose to suppress a part of who we are, not fully express who we are in any given arena. So yeah, at this age, I try to recognize those parts of me and nurture those parts. So
it's like that voice of self-doubt. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this. And then that's what kills our spirit.
Right. So when does that voice show up? That voice tends to show up when we're in a place of challenge, whether it's a self-induced challenge, if it's something that we've looked forward to. When we're at that place, it happens to me every time I get ready to go on stage as a speaker. I describe it this way. Well, first of all, it's fear is what's driving us, and there are all those. Any personal development coach these days talks about the different kinds of fear and how there's authentic fear and there's inauthentic fear, real fear, not real fear, the saber-toothed tiger in the Serengeti versus standing in front of a room. I'm not going to die if I bomb in front of a room, but the fear is real, and it comes from the same place. Even if there's not a saber-toothed tiger there, it's still our limbic system that has evolved to keep us safe. So even if the greatest danger is that I might embarrass myself versus getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, it's the same part of my physiology that is active. So what I do in those situations where I want to participate in something, I want to be on stage, I want to be giving a speech, I want to be on the podcast here with Cheryl. I love the FemiNinja, but I'm scared to death to do it. Well, what I recognize is that, okay, this is the little devil on my shoulder telling me that, oh, you better not do that. Stay safe. Don't go do whatever it was that you really thought you wanted to do. I have learned to recognize that, and I actively thank that little devil for being there and trying to keep me safe. And then I set him on a little shelf, set him aside, say, hey, dude, you're not serving me right now. I'm going to set you over here. I want you to sit there and be quiet. We're going to go on an adventure. And if I need to come back to you, I know where to find you. And then whatever it is that I'm trying to do, I step forward. I take action. I create a plan and act on that plan and step out in faith and courage. So that's the definition of courage. We feel the fear, but we step out and act anyway. And that happens in all the time, all around us. We're given the opportunity to feel the fear and act anyway.
And most of the time when you do it, it wasn't as scary as you thought it was going to be. And
Oh
a
my
lot
goodness.
of times it's just uplifting and just you feel victorious. I mean, it's almost like a rush. It's like I conquered my fear. And it could be something simple. It doesn't have to be something huge, but
Right.
just stepping out and testing the waters and doing something even small that gives you another level of courage.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. That is how that grows. That's how you can refer it to as a muscle, a courage muscle. We exercise that muscle and it gets stronger and better. Just last night, I was at a networking event, had the opportunity to observe and this other participant. She was telling me about this area of her life that she had been challenged, had struggled with. She was able to work through that and how she felt so much better. And I said, look, here's the thing to remember. You did that and you didn't die. Notice that. Embrace that reality. I did it and I didn't die. That's cool.
And start with small steps.
Right. But you can you can add the same gravitas. Okay, I did this one small thing. I've been afraid to do that. As laughably small as it would look like from the outside, it was a real fear for me. And I did that, and I didn't die. Wow, that's cool. Maybe I can do something a little bit more challenging next time. They'll be even more fun, more rewarding. I don't know whether I'll be successful or not. Oh, there's that little devil on the shoulder. Maybe I don't really want to. You know what? Thank you for keeping me safe. You're going over here on the shelf. Now, this is what I'm going to do. And you step out and do it. This is how we build fulfilling lives. This is how you and I now have all these stories to tell. We've got, the way I express it, I have 60 years worth of stories I've paid for with my life.
A lot of us think that the things that we've done really aren't that important or aren't that impressive. I've had people tell me, oh my gosh, you've done so many wonderful things. And I'm like, really? It doesn't seem like it's that impressive because I've lived the life.
You walked through it.
Yeah.
The things that we see as ordinary because we've lived them, other people see as extraordinary because they see them from the outside. My last co-pilot, just last week, was a retired Navy captain who obviously was a pilot, a carrier-based pilot. And during the layover in San Diego, I had the opportunity to tour the floating museum out there, the USS Midway.
Oh, wow.
A magnificent experience, lots of airplanes on the deck. But probably the most rewarding part was there were some of these docents, I don't know, 75, 80 years old, guys who had lived the life for decades. And they gave presentations on how they launched these jets off the carrier.
Wow.
And how they recovered them after the flight back onto the carrier. And I've known lots of carrier pilots in my life, and I knew they were just, can I say badass on this
Oh,
stage?
yeah.
They were badasses.
We like badass on the FemiNinja.
But I didn't know how badass they were. And as a pilot, I'm sitting here on the deck of the Midway watching this presentation from this guy who had, a couple hundred traps, who landed on the carrier a couple hundred times, which meant he had launched a couple hundred times. And they're telling me how this thing works and this intricate ballet and how every different kind of airplane, they have to set the catapult differently and they have to set the arresting wires differently because of the gross weight and the speed and all those other technical things that are going on. And during each of these presentations, I'm looking at the other people, maybe a half dozen people who are just wandering through the museum. They sit down on the benches to watch these stories. People have no idea what this guy's talking about. They're smiling and nodding and thinking, oh, this is really cool. Aircraft carrier, jets, all that kind of stuff. But I'm hearing the words he's using. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I had no idea how intricate and how involved and how hard this is to do, and all the things I have to take into account. Just one detail on that: when the jet's getting ready to launch off the carrier, if the aircraft is in wavy seas, the nose of the airplane is going up and down.
Oh my goodness!
So the guy who is going to push the button to fire the catapult to launch the airplane off the end of the deck has to do it timed such that the nose of the airplane isn't going, or the nose of the ship isn't going down.
Oh.
It's trending up. So the guy is launched with an upward trajectory as opposed to being launched with a downward trajectory into the water.
That would be bad.
So it never even occurred to me that they would have to be taking that kind of stuff into account. At the same time, they're trying to launch one of these guys every 90 seconds. Wow. So one guy launches, as soon as he's gone, the next guy comes into the catapult, gets all hooked up, and then the guy who's getting ready to launch the catapult he's having to watch the deck, the pitch of the deck. So he launches him on the right trajectory. All this stuff's going on. Well, here's my co-pilot, and I'm telling him about this experience. And he said, yeah, I never really thought of it like that. I'm like, you got to be bagging me. Dude, I knew what they were telling me because I'm a pilot. I speak the language. I understand this stuff. I was fascinated by the stuff that you lived.
Wow.
I said, yeah, I kind of got used to it. It just wasn't that big a deal to me.
Wow, isn't that something?
Yeah.
And not just with all the calculations and everything that's going on that they're coordinating. In my mind, what comes up is trust.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is the ultimate test of trust.
Yes, and all of these guys who are involved in launching this airplane or recovering this airplane on those arresting wires, you got to trust them.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them has to do his job correctly, or bad things happen.
Wow.
So here's an aircraft carrier fighter pilot who thinks he's living an ordinary life. Yeah, so I
rest my case.
Exactly. Now, he's an extreme example. Most of us don't fly off of aircraft carriers, but we all have extraordinary lives if we will just take the time to think back of the things that we've seen, the places we've been, the things that we've done over the course of our lives. Mm-hmm. They are all remarkable. I tell everyone you should write a book. We should never minimize our lives.
Right.
We should enjoy and embrace the lives that we've had, and then gain encouragement from that about what's coming next.
And share it with others.
Yes, absolutely, because everyone feels the same way. Everybody feels ordinary. I'm just me. Mm-hmm. But when we share those ideas and we embrace and enjoy and get excited about the things that we've seen, the places we've been, the things that we've done, then that gives other people around us permission to do the same thing.
Exactly. And restoring human dignity. I always go back to that. I like that.
You like that?
I do. So speaking of books, you did write that lovely book, The Symphony of Your Life, and people can find that online if they just go to the Symphony.
Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon. It's all on Amazon, absolutely.
Okay. And your Facebook page, your Captain's Log, is that on your personal page, or do you have another?
I have two pages. My personal page is my own name.
Okay.
Just Mark Hardcastle. Okay. Search me on Facebook. And my Symphony of Your Life page is just that. It's the Symphony of Your Life on Facebook. And that's based around the first book that I wrote.
And I'll include all the links on the podcast too when I post it. And the other thing, though, I want to remind you, and I'm going to leave my listeners with a little bit of a tease, because Mark, Captain Ninja, is going to be coming back, and we're going to talk about something we didn't even address today, which is your accident.
We said we were going to do that last time.
Yeah, well. And the other thing is I still want you to share that other story, the one that you posted on Facebook. But we're just going to leave that as a little tease.
Oh, what a cool thing. It was another dark and stormy night.
Another dark and stormy night. Kind of like today's a dark and stormy day.
Yeah.
But, okay, so thanks, Mark. Oh, my gosh. I just love having you here. I love talking to you. You are just phenomenal. And to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And do connect with Mark. Check out his book. Look him up on Facebook. And don't forget that you've got a lot of worth. You have a lot of stories, and make sure that you keep taking chances and learning and trying new things, because that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.